Exude Human Capital Consulting hosts Hold On, Let Me Close My Door, bringing real HR stories from real professionals with real solutions to you. Join us as we navigate the ever-changing workplace with Allison DeFlorio, co-founder and managing partner of Exude Human Capital, and our special guests. Welcome to Hold On, Let Me Close My Door. I'm Allison DeFlorio, and I am so pleased to have our Halloween edition for 2023. And we're titling this, We Know What You Did Last Week. And you know why? Because we're in HR, and we really do know what you did last week, or we're going to find out about it. I am so happy to be here today and joined again by my co-host, Doug May, one of Exude's fabulous HR consultants and facilitator extraordinaire. Welcome, Doug.
Well, thanks, Allison. I'm so excited and a little scared to be here right now because some of these would curl my hair if I had hair. So and people don't get, being in HR, all of the stuff you have to deal with it. And some of it is downright scary. So we're going to talk about that today.
We do. And you and I have talked frequently, as I have with many of our consultants, about things that we never share with the outside world that are unusual and certainly sometimes scary. And some of the stories we tell today, these are all out there, public domain. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. Doug, I know you have a couple of sources that you pulled some of these stories from. Do you want to share what those are?
Yeah, so to protect the innocent, Allison and I decided to do some public-facing stories and not tell stories from our careers because we might have people who listen to it and say, oh, they're talking about me, or they were talking, I remember that situation. So I went to a few sites, and so those sites are called, and they're great sites, by the way. They have a lot of other information that you can find out from them. The first one is called Breezy HR. It's their blog. So they put out some horror stories. Bamboo HR blog is another one that did it as well. HRdive.com, which had an article about HR horror stories, and Ranker. So that's where I got these from. And we've shortened them a little bit, and we're going to kind of walk through them and then have a discussion about what we think the HR department should do.
And we might have to add a little bit of color and share some similar experiences that perhaps maybe came across our paths at some point in time. Right, Doug?
Absolutely, yes. Because some of them I can relate to.
All right, well, let's kick this off. Doug, do you want to share the first story?
Yeah, this one was from Breezy, and it was about, they called it the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So it's about an interview challenge that a manager had. So I'm just going to go ahead and walk through it with you. So this is from the interviewer's point of view. As I entered the conference room, the young man who had come for the interview was already seated at the table, and he was looking at the screen of his phone. This was when smartphones had just started to be more common. Could he be looking for quick interview tips, rating up on the company, supporting texts from his mom? Nope. According to the interviewer, the phone screen showed a nude picture of a young woman.
Oh.
Pretty awkward. Yeah.
Awkward.
So the interviewer said, I was surprised to see this because I was getting ready to interview. It bothered me, and I said, interesting picture, and I introduced myself. The interviewee stood up and said, yeah, that's my girl. Isn't she hot?
Oh, my.
So he didn't know what to say. He said, I didn't respond. Instead, I said, let's get started. So what do we do? Obviously, he didn't get the position. Let's start there.
Shocker. I'm stunned.
So what do you think of that situation, Allison?
Well, it's interesting because I can honestly say I haven't had that experience in an interview, but I've had a number of experiences, and I've had clients that have had odd experiences with interviews. The porn thing, though, has come up in different scenarios. Back in the day when I was actually in-house human resources, I remember instances of people being behind closed doors for an inordinate periods of time, high-level people, and at the end of the day, they found that what they were actually doing behind closed doors was watching porn. So I've seen it pop up in ways like that, but I can't imagine an interview. What would you say if that were you in that scenario?
Well, I think, first of all, I might be a little embarrassed, and I'm going to just be honest with you and be like, oh my. So what I would probably do is try to play it off. I would do a courtesy interview, but he would get like 15 minutes of my time. And then there's part of me that wants to give him a little bit of advice. So I'm not sure if I would want to do that, because I don't know if that opens us up to anything, but it's sort of like, dude, why are you looking at a naked picture of your girlfriend before an interview? So, I mean, can't you wait? So
You know, it's interesting. So it's like, it's a short interview, courtesy interview, you cut it
Right.
short, and then you decide if you're going to give him feedback after the interview is
Right.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell you now, it wasn't related to this. But I remember very early in my career, when I was out in Las Vegas, I remember I worked in the employment center, and I heard this guy giving our person, the HR rep, a terrible time, like yelling at her and stuff about his application.
Oh,
And
totally
so,
unacceptable.
yeah, totally unacceptable. So I cut in and I said, what can I help you with? And then he went through this whole thing about her. And I said, okay, so this is what's going to happen. We're not submitting you to anyone. And let me give you a piece of advice. I said, this person is the gatekeeper. You probably really want to be nice to her. And we do not allow people to talk to our employees that way. So you will not get a job here. And so I gave him that feedback. Now, this young man, I probably would do it more of in a way of, hey, not a good idea. So, because I've done that with other people too. I mean, differently. Like, I remember a young man who interviewed for a position with me, and I really liked him, but he wasn't qualified for the job. And he also had a lot of typos in his resume. So I remember calling him to tell him he wasn't going to get the job. And I said, and I want to help you with your resume. So let's fix all the typos in your resume. And so I'm eternally grateful to me for that. But this guy, I don't know. It's just, it's like, I feel like I want to give him feedback, and it would really depend on what I established in the interview with him, I guess. I don't know. What do you think?
I might give him feedback, but it would be short and it may not be pleasant.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
True.
no, I wouldn't be rude, but I would give him that feedback that's not acceptable.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's interesting because and I don't want to sound like a boomer, but I'm going to sound like a boomer now. So, but if you think about it, I mean, it's a different world, but I just don't understand, everybody's in their phones all the time, but I just don't understand the thought of looking at nude pictures at work. I mean,
Yeah, no, it's not acceptable. You wouldn't tolerate from an employee,
right.
In most
Right.
industries. So why would you tolerate it?
True.
Okay.
So you're tougher than I am. That's good.
In the moment right now.
Yeah. Yeah, because if it was happening, we might be like, holy fuck.
Yeah. What's going on here? Well, that's an interesting first scary story. Let's go to this next one. This is a little creepy, I have to be honest. And we're gonna call it "She'll Put a Hex on You." And this comes from someone who was a chief research officer who was witnessing his very first termination as an HR professional. And it's honestly very creepy. So as the story goes, they had done an investigation, but what it was is that a woman had come into work acting very strangely during a night shift, right? An overnight shift, and began following a female coworker around the work site, loudly calling her fornicator and eventually laying a voodoo curse on her. How creepy is that?
Wow. Wow.
Okay, it gets worse. The unsuspecting female coworker was pregnant, and this whole experience really freaked her out. The Hexers' response was nothing short of confident when they brought her in to tell her that they were going to be terminating her or she was going to be leaving the company. She acted like absolutely nothing was wrong, that this was perfectly normal, and couldn't understand why dropping a voodoo curse on an employee and her unborn child would be seen as anything out of the ordinary. What do you think of that?
Wow. Well, so I think they made the right decision about terminating her. And it makes you wonder, but there's something that really bothers me about it. And that's like, was she dangerous? I mean, if you think about that, I'm surprised that they were able to terminate. I mean, it sounds like she did another hex, right? I mean, but I'm surprised.
They don't give all the detail, but they do suggest that that investigation was done, right?
Right.
So, and it appears that it wasn't the only time she did this. It appears that there were multiple times where she was doing this, multiple times in this one evening that she was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going to say, like, if it was multiple times over a couple of weeks, why did they?
Oh, no. But it's interesting because when I read this one, I did a little research, and voodoo is actually considered a religion. So, you know, religious accommodation or otherwise, throwing a curse or intimidating or frightening someone is not acceptable, and not
right.
It's and any company policy I have ever reviewed would certainly be grounds for some sort of disciplinary action up and including termination.
Yeah, and I think they were right in terminating her right away, because that is I talk a lot about this when I do classes, especially around employment law and that kind of thing, is that there are some things that are so egregious that you skip all of the steps and you just go, yeah, we can't have this person around here anymore, because what she's done at this point is she's created such a hostile work environment for that employee. That employee is not going to want to come back, and I don't blame her.
Yeah.
And so that's an example of when the corrective action piece you throw out the window and you go right to termination. So I think they did the right thing.
Or you have your policy written in such a way that, it allows you to make those decisions if one of your employees is feeling, exceptionally intimidated. And the law protects that too. The harassment may happen over a period of time. However, it could also happen in one instance.
Right. It can be severe enough.
Yes, severe. Yeah, how severe it is.
Yeah, so I always wonder, this is one of those other things that I look at, I think about and I go, what was that employee thinking? Oh my.
We're not.
Right. It's like, why did you think that was okay? That's what's scary about some of these stories, as well as other stories that I've had in my career as well. It's like, why?
What part of that? What part of that made you wake up today and say, yes, this is what I'm going to do, and this is okay?
Right. And it makes me think that this person probably needs some sort of assistance, with an employee assistance program, because it just doesn't seem like behavior. You had to see warning signs, I would think. Maybe not. I don't know.
Maybe not. And to your point, we do know that there are issues. People face a whole host of mental health issues, and that can show up in the workplace.
Sure.
It can be triggered. So
Sure.
Regardless if somebody's safety or it's causing, if it rises to a level of harassment or somebody is in fear, that takes it to a whole other level. And yes, you want to help the person and help them get help, but you also have to protect the organization.
Right. And your other team and your other employees, because you want to create a safe environment for them to come to where they don't think they're going to be threatened by another team member. Wow.
Right.
It's crazy,
It is. Okay. All right. What do we have?
All right. So the next one, let's talk about the next one. This one was a little scary, I have to tell you. So there's the FBI, it's called fake job applicants. Now, the FBI has been reporting a rise in fraud. As we know, there's fraud in all kinds of areas where you get the phone calls or the texts. And I mean, all the junk email that I get now that has fraud, but there's also now fraudulent applicants who try to get hired so they can tap in and hack your systems at work. So let me kind of go through this with you real quick. So the FBI recently issued a warning that complaints are rolling in about a scheme in which fraudulent candidates apply for remote work positions. And they use deep fake technology to hide their identity during the interview process.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so you've seen it, right? You've seen it where they take a politician and they do the deep fake and they make them say something that they really didn't say before. So now they're
it looks real. It looks real.
It looks real. You have to have a really clear eye because I've seen interviews about it to see that it's fake. So while the report attempts so far have been foiled, the FBI said in its presumption is that hackers are hoping to secure the position, gain access to company logins, and steal sensitive customer and client information. So we've heard about deepfakes. It uses artificial intelligence to create convincing synthetic media. So it creates an applicant. Through this tech, fake job applicants can use an overlay of different individuals' faces to conduct the video interview using a different identity. Well,
my goodness.
Yeah. So they've been targeting mainly tech-heavy jobs. So, like you would think like a Google but they have a lot of safeguards, but really they've been really going after those type of companies. And so they have a special agent that works with the FBI to try to figure this out. So what's happened so far? Nobody's been caught, but it's on the horizon because, so it's really looking at how do we make sure that the person we're interviewing is the person we want to hire and not some fake candidate that's going to come in and hack our system. So that's
just you felt like you didn't have anything else to worry about. And is it recruiting? Is it already a challenge for so many employers?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
it's interesting. Since the pandemic, many employers have hired people that they've actually never met in person.
Right.
And all the interviews have been virtual.
Right.
This is really interesting.
Well, think about it. So if you think about it, Allison, I mean, when you brought me on a couple years ago, you and I didn't meet in person until probably a year after I started. Do you realize?
That's true. I forget about it because I feel like I've known you forever, but you're absolutely right.
And so that's a perfect example there. So I wonder if the way to get around it is that you have to have an in-person interview, or or
you have multiple. I don't know. Maybe you do a phone call. You do a random phone call so you can talk with that person.
Oh yeah, good idea. Yeah.
But you talk with them. I'd also say, and for anyone listening, I hope that you do background checks, and I hope that you would do background checks for these roles. Now, if these people are this sophisticated with their technology, perhaps they also create, fake backgrounds. But if you're doing reference checks,
right,
you have to make sure that, you're there. They'd really have to jump through a lot of hoops to make this work, to get you through the actual interview process. So they might get you on the video interview, but if you have all of your other steps, checkpoints in place for the hiring process, hopefully you would catch that before it actually happened.
Yeah, it's interesting though. So, but this is the thing. Right now, they're all getting caught. But we know how quickly technology improves and moves forward, and there's new ways. And so I mean, we're at the just at the beginning of this. God, I hate to. God, I sound like a fatalist or something like that. but
Well, we are. I mean, we are. And you think about how AI is at rapid pace, beyond any pace we've seen in the past with technology, is just kind of working its way, or is in the workplace in many different ways. And I think in the applicant process, I mean, it's been part of our own systems, our own, our HR systems internally to help identify candidates. It was only a matter of time before it would become a tool that anybody can use to, hopefully for good things, but in this case, apparently not.
Well, yeah, I wish that, again, I think we talked about this earlier, that I wish that all these people who figure out these hacking schemes, if they worked for a regular company, just how great it would be. So
it would be fantastic. It would be fantastic. Okay, that's just something more for us to worry about.
I know. So yeah, here we're worried. Every time I interview somebody, I'm going to be like, are they a real person? So.
I have heard, I don't know if I saw it on a documentary, but I have heard that, or read it in an article, that if you look at videos of people, on some of the fakes, people will have 6 fingers instead of 5. Now on an interview, on a camera interview, you probably wouldn't see somebody's hands. But if listeners, if you see their hands in an interview, see how many fingers they actually have. And that might be one way to perhaps think twice and ask some more probing questions.
Yeah, no, I know. I get, and then just stare at them, like, look at it.
Okay, Doug, let's move on to one we'll affectionately call dino babies.
Yeah.
Can you relate?
Yeah, I guess I'm a dino baby is what I figured out. So
we're not dino babies. So this is actually this was reported by a large organization, and it went to court, and it was a full case that was decided on in a discrimination lawsuit, and a discrimination lawsuit against older workers. For anyone listening here, be really careful about memos that senior leaders put in writing or emails that they send, because if you are ever sued for anything, all of that is discoverable, as you all probably know listening here. But these were some really bad decisions from senior leaders of this organization who put their own personal beliefs about older people in emails. So let me just read to you some of the content of this. So apparently, some executives of this particular organization wanted to, quote, accelerate change by inviting the dino babies to leave, end quote, and make them an extinct species, which, by the way, was in quotes, in writing, in email. Can you believe that, Doug?
Yeah, I can actually. Part of me wants to say no, but yes.
So they had somebody in their organization in HR had done some research and found that some competitive consulting firms had very high rates of millennial employees, where theirs was about half the number of millennial employees across their organization. And they put in writing that this speaks to the need to hire early professionals and to avoid using down banding of existing employees as a way to fill jobs. Quote, honestly, I think we should stop this practice. It means overpaying, creating blockers, and inhibits bringing new thinking from the outside. So their intent was to figure out a plan to drive out some of the older workers and bring in some younger people. I won't read all of this, but it goes on, and it was pretty explicit, and they had the emails to support that this was indeed a scheme that was hatched to put in policies that would protect employment of those recently hired but exercise other actions to accelerate anyone over the age of, the way it appears here to be somewhere over the age of 50, to leave the organization. As it goes, and as you might imagine, one 59-year-old worker was let go, and he knew it was because of his age, and he did file a lawsuit and did win his lawsuit. Doug, what do you think about this?
Well, it's interesting because I just had a class today where I talked about this, and it's this one seems blatant to me, but how many downsizings in companies have they done where they go after the longer term workers because they typically make more, and that they and they're trying to save money. So it has an adverse impact on people over 40, which is a protected class. So there's been lawsuits around that as well, where they've had to pay out. So this is just, I hope those executives were let go. I mean, because this is just an example of somebody not thinking, and I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it, saying the quiet part outside, because companies sometimes do this. But they were really blatant about it. So I'm glad they lost. You're making assumptions, and I think the scary thing in life, and we do this with a lot of different people, is that we make assumptions about how effective they're going to be. And it's based on age, it's based on gender, it's based on race, it's based on all different types of factors. If somebody's different than us, we don't know if we may consider them to not be effective as others. But it seems to happen a lot with the older worker. And so that's my thought. I'm glad that I hope that they lost their jobs. You never know, though, because sometimes that doesn't happen.
Sometimes that doesn't happen. I know they probably paid a lot of money, though.
Right.
We don't know how much, but we know that the company probably had to pay a lot of money. And, the way I think about it in tight labor markets, which there's some industries that right now are experiencing not as tight a market, but many industries are still experiencing a very challenging market for talent. And to encourage those who are, end career or sunsetters to stay a little bit longer, and pairing them with newer people coming in so there can be a transfer of knowledge and really be a win-win for an organization.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that sometimes that can be missed. And in fairness, I think some end career people may not be receptive to newer people coming in with a lot of ideas and a lot of energy and wanting to move really fast, who may not have the experience or the wisdom yet to kind of finesse that move. But I think if organizations were intentional, and I'm not saying a formal mentorship program, sometimes that's just too much for an organization, but an informal mentor program or pairing people or some sort of a matchmaking system between newer workers and later age workers, I think can be extremely effective in organizations.
True. Yeah. And it's, and that way you can help them to make that transition, because there's another side to this too. I know a lot of people who are, they're looking for that early retirement package now when they get to a certain age. There are people who are looking for it, but it's when you're forcing people out because you consider them to no longer be useful, I guess, is the best way to say that. It's not cool. It's not, I mean, it's not cool.
Right.
It's very goofy.
Right. There's a way to do it. There's a way to do it that can be more effective. And will cost you millions of dollars.
Right.
This organization probably paid.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because you said the thing you said about recruiting, and this is completely unrelated, but it was interesting because when I was driving to a client's this morning, I drove past a restaurant outside of New Hope, and they had a sign up, and I thought it was great. It said, it wasn't great that they needed to put the sign up, but it was creative. It said, desperately seeking servers. I go, Well, that's a good way to look at it. But you're right. I mean, forcing people out in this kind of a market is probably not a wise move. I mean,
Probably not.
besides saying that stuff as well. So
Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about bringing your pet to work. How about that?
This is one of my favorites, and I do have stories I can share.
Well, so, we always are thinking of ways to engage our employees and have a little fun at work. And so this company decided to do Bring Your Pet to Work Day. So let me tell you, it's short, so I'll just read it to you. So it's a colleague once shared a story about an employee bringing an alligator to work in a shopping cart. Yes, it was an alligator. The coworkers did not seem to mind, and they participated in the photo ops, petting, holding, etc. Shockingly, this was the last Bring Your Pet to Work day at this company because following the incident, HR implemented a no pets in the workplace policy. So it sounded like the alligator was okay. And it's funny because I wore a crocodile shirt today, which is from Lacoste. So I had in honor of this one. And so it's like, so it goes back to the what were you thinking? And so what do you think about that one?
So here's what I think. I think clarity in your policies is important. So when you say bring your pet to work day, and you really meant bring your dog, because some people will have dogs in the workplace, you should say dog. That's one thing I think.
Right.
However, I have my own thoughts on bringing pets to work. Personally, I have a pet, I have a dog, you have a dog. I would love to have my dog at work, but I wouldn't do it. And I have had experiences where offices were dog friendly, and it was kind of interesting going there because you just see dogs kind of laying around. However, in one instance, visitors to a particular organization were not as accustomed to the dogs being around, and nor were the dogs accustomed to people who weren't part of the workplace. And in one particular instance, an individual visitor to the organization stepped over Sleeping Dog, and Sleeping Dog got spooked and bit the dog. I remember getting the phone call, and that was like one of those, hold on, let me close my door phone calls. And they said, what do I do? And I said, well, number one, is the person okay? We took them to the hospital. It was bleeding, all of that good stuff. I said, get the rabies certificate from the owner because that is what they're going to ask you for. And rethink your policy moving forward. It wasn't anything intentional. No one would think that this would happen. This dog had never bitten before, but because it was a new person, someone they hadn't seen before, and they were asleep, these things can happen. So you have to be really careful about opening that up.
Yeah, I wonder because I saw a picture of a video. Wow. Okay. I saw a video that showed a place just like that where, like the owners were literally had their dogs on their laps while they were working on their computers. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. And then I thought, well, if I took my dog, what she's going to do is she's going to bark at everybody all day. And because she needs to protect her daddy and she wants you to know, you stay over there. So I couldn't do it. I just wonder, it's fun. I don't know. I don't want to.
I don't know. I've also had.
I think it's a good idea.
I've also had the issue come up with clients where the people are allergic to dogs or pets, and people bring their pets in and not thinking about that. It can cause, issues for other people. So,
and some people are definitely afraid of dogs too. I mean,
okay. Quick story. I went to see a client. This is pre-pandemic when we used to go do those things in person. And I remember the client came to open the door because it was a locked door, which is not unusual, right? Door from the outside to the inside. I was with a colleague. Opens the door. I walked in, and my colleague was behind me. And from around the corner came two, had to easily be 120-pound German Shepherds,
Right.
barking like we were mass murderers or something. And I'm a dog person. I grew up around big dogs, German Shepherds, but I have to say, I was taken aback. I was not expecting that. And somebody who may not be, who might have any experiences with dogs, I mean, that could be really problematic. So
Right. Yeah.
at the end of the day, be mindful. Not everybody loves your pet the way that you do.
Right. And there's just dogs have there. It has to be a dog with a special disposition, is what I think, because that really is not going to be, aggressive or scared if somebody walks in, like the example that you gave about bite. And then you get into the thing where people are going to say, well, can I bring my cat?
Right?
Can I bring my rabbit?
And then someone else say, yeah,
So,
yeah, it's just not okay.
yeah, it's not a good idea.
Our recommendation is ixnay on the bring the pet to work day.
This is what you could do, though. You could have a picture contest, because I remember doing that when I worked at a hotel. We would say, bring in a picture of your pet and have people guess whose pet it is. I mean,
Okay, that's totally fine, safe, and you're not going to have any lawsuits.
yeah, and it's a picture.
And-
So,
Okay, Doug, I feel like we've gone through a lot of these stories now.
right.
At the end of the day, we hope, listeners, you found some interesting tidbits, and hopefully you don't experience any of these horror stories.
Oh, I know. Gosh.
But we do know that wherever there are people, there are going to be stories, right?
Yeah, people, you would be amazed. I mean, this is just a tip of the iceberg about some of the things that HR professionals regularly deal with. Some of them, it's the truth sometimes is stranger than fiction, which I think is the saying that really, because I can tell you in my career that there's been times like I go, what?
My favorite phrase, and I think we ought to wrap with this, is an employment attorney that I talk to frequently will often start a story saying, "You can't make this stuff up."
That's for sure.
And with that, we thank everyone for joining us for the Halloween edition of Hold On, Let Me Close My Door. Until next time.